Your Excellency, Ms. Vagishwara, High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to India and the chair of today's session, distinguished participants in the seminar, members of the faculty, we have Dr. Shalini Lawale, Ambassador Sudhir Devre and Ambassador Prakash Shah, and dear students. I'm delighted to be here at this extremely timely seminar with the participation of some of the most distinguished figures in this field. Symbiosis University deserves our felicitations to once again provide a thought leadership in the discourse on a subject of very critical national and international importance. And felicitation due to Professor Majumdar, the Chancellor, Professor Vidya Javadekar, Professor Gupte, the Vice Chancellor. The conference note outlined the scope to cover the dynamics of Indian Ocean region and its influence on the geopolitical trajectories, and as to how they will impact on politics, economy, society of the region, and India's relations with the major powers, and to address developments that are shaping the internal dynamics apart from mapping challenges and opportunities for India. The current focus on blue economy is extremely critical in the circumstances as they prevail in the region and the world as a whole. This national as well as international endeavor is to meet both the challenges as well as the most untapped potential for human progress. The challenges and the opportunities are in a delicate balance, requiring imaginative ways in a unique, historically unique circumstance in the 21st century. In terms of the challenges, the UN report of July 2015 on the state of the world's oceans warns that human activities now have so many and great impacts on the ocean that the limits of its carrying capacity are being, or in some cases have been, reached. The urgency of steering the development of blue economy cannot be gainsaid, as challenges grow due to the hurtling pace of technology, security downside of disruptive effect of climate change, demographic and urbanization imbalances in the littoral regions and countries, failing states or failing regions, and the destabilizing impact of pandemics and natural disasters. The coral reefs provide a habitat for fish, mangroves minimize coastal erosion and act as a natural barrier against storms and flooding, and seagrass beds help regulate climate change by sequestering carbon dioxide from the atmosphere up to twice as much as the world's temperate and tropical forests. Growing awareness of the increasingly fragile ocean economy is translating into business risks such as higher volatility of resource prices, higher taxation for companies with poor environmental performance and requirements in the market, and of sustainability reports of the companies. I mean, we've already discussed the ecology of the Indian Ocean having been endangered with high levels of acidification. More than 65% of the coral reefs in the Indian Ocean are at risk from local threats like coastal development, overfishing or destructive fishing, marine pollution or watershed-based pollution. There is sharper threat focus on areas along continental shores where more than 90% of these are threatened. A decline of up to 20% in the marine phytoplankton in the Indian Ocean in the last 6 decades, and tuna catches and all have rapidly declined, and so also have the various kind of marine species. To meet these challenges, as well as the necessity to economically tap the resources of the ocean in an ecological sustainable manner, the objectives of one of the 17 UN mandated Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, for the achievements by the Committee of Nations by 2030, namely Goal 14, as has been mentioned here already, is to conserve sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources. The targeted activities include significant reduction of marine pollution, directly manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystems, minimize impacts of ocean acidification, effectively regulate harvesting and end overfishing, including illegal fishing, conserve at least 10% of coastal marine areas, prohibit forms of fisheries subsidies which contribute to overcapacity, increase benefit to small island developing states and least developed countries from sustainable use of marine resources, increase scientific knowledge and transfer marine technology, access to small-scale artisanal fishers to marine resources, and markets and enhance conservation and sustainable use of oceans as reflected in the UN Convention Law of the Sea. The objective of developing a strong blue economy is to ensure food security, meet the demand for protein, coastal and marine tourism, seaborne trade, supporting infrastructure, non-renewable renewable energy, ecological and sustainable coastal urbanization, and ocean technologies. Larger communities, especially coastal and small island nations, are dependent on oceans for fishing, minerals, oil and gas, rare earth metals, renewable energy, and other resources. Since a large number of oceanic activities are fishing and trade, a robust blue economic regeneration would be equitable and inclusive for dependent communities. The pressing quest for sustainable economic growth is bolstered by new technology for exploitation of deep sea resources, such as hydrocarbons, rare earths, polymetallic nodules, marine biodiversity, etc. Moreover, the Indian Ocean's importance in monsoon forecasting and weather modeling has been long recognized. An important aspect of the scientific interest is in the understanding of climate change phenomenon and the vulnerabilities due to increasing frequency and severity of extreme weather events for littoral states. This aspect has implications for littoral states' capabilities to cope with the disasters with potential adverse consequences of administrative collapse, spread of radicalism, societal breakdown, and most importantly, regional stability. The current state of oceanography, having better monsoon study capabilities and better understanding of climate change trends, is helping in devising geohazard coping capability from the point of view of vulnerability mapping of the littoral areas and vital onshore and offshore infrastructure. Better meteorological capabilities have implications for coastal marine ecology, involving islands' development activities, drugs from the sea, integrated coastal marine area management, and coastal monitoring and protection systems. And they all have implications in terms of sea level rise, natural sinking of lands in relevant areas, sustaining isolated communities, integrated coastal communities, as well as geoengineering responses to climate change for India. For India, climatologist Stephen Harrison has spoken of a distinct possibility of a future climate change being abrupt and non-linear. In Prime Minister Modi's Sagar speech at Port Louis on 12 March 2015, the creation of a stable maritime order in the Indian Ocean and promotion of blue economy as the basis of regional economic integration was his main theme. Describing climate change phenomenon as not just a matter of empty talk, but a serious threat to existence for those who live by the ocean. This threat manifests itself, as he said, on a daily basis in the tragedy of the tsunamis and cyclones. He referred to the rising impact of climate change on our coast and islands, and from this starting point, he put the spotlight on the enormous scope of blue economy in terms of the dynamism and energy of Asia and the Pacific being determined by the tides of the Indian Ocean. The inclusion in the National Development Agenda, as well as the multilateral regional agenda of blue economy, will have the effect of mitigating the negative impact of climate change threat, which is directly casting a shadow on region stability and prosperity. It also provides the opportunity to revive the forged links of commerce, culture, and religion with our extended neighborhood across several millenniums, as he put it. What the Prime Minister said in regard to that in Mauritius and concerning the IORA is equally applicable to other multilateral organizations, which were referred earlier by our chairman, in which India is an active partner, namely SAARC and BIMSTEC. The latter two organizations have also adopted blue economy as one of the key areas of participation. Now, the government has started giving focused attention to the blue economy development agenda and has adopted the SDGs, including the goal 14, as its national agenda. This agenda has received a major boost with the adoption by the government of India with the participation of state governments of a Sagarmala program, that is development of coastal area, shipping, etc. However, there is a need to recognize that all the initiatives are at a very early stage. The Niti Aayog is beginning to develop a comprehensive strategy on blue economy as a holistic concept and has just about starting a consultation process. Our chambers of commerce are just about beginning to develop an economic agenda for this, and I am aware that FICCI has just set up a task force. Most of our efforts are largely R&D oriented, research and development oriented. Ministry of Earth Science is looking at these from climate change proofing point of view, that is adaptation and mitigation, meteorological services, ocean forecasting, and as the term they use is nowcasting, itemizing marine and littoral stocks littoral stock, etc. As is being discussed here in this seminar, geopolitics matters. It impacts on the working of the multilateral governance mechanisms, which are critical for the proper exploitation of the ocean resources, consistent with the principles and values of the SDGs. One can draw a contrast with the situation in the South China Sea. It has implications on the level of trust, the quality and effectiveness of regional governance mechanisms, as well as for the heightened exposure of the region to the full spectrum of the traditional and the non-traditional security threats. Can we prevent, for example, the turbulence of adjacent waters spilling over into the Indian Ocean? Can we insulate Blue Economy program in the Indian Ocean from the turbulence which is deepening on its northern periphery? There are issues of capacities for implementation and sharing of knowledge and skills. It encompasses the governance organization for IORA, the national governments themselves, calibration of policies to encourage it, the institutional cohesion at the grassroots level, including the involvement of civil society. This capacity could also include coping with security downside of climate change. These destabilize and test the institutional resilience of the affected communities. All these require government effort with the involvement of business organizations, think tanks, and the academia, as well as the community groups. Through various consultative forums, we can develop regulatory frameworks for various components of the blue economy, which need to find the optimal balance between economic sustainability and investment returns to attract private sector, local communities, civil society, and philanthropic organizations. It would clearly require development of economic models, including public-private partnership models, funding arrangements of innovative types, blue bonds, for example. That it is economically sustainable is illustrated by the study which was done of the Xiamen city in China, where it was found that every dollar invested in the integrated coastal management has returned, according to these studies, $7 of economic benefit to that city. Development of indices to monitor governance and social, economic, and environmental changes in coastal systems is an important aspect of this endeavor. Popular sensitization and enforcement of norms and indices requires effort from the entire government system as well as local communities. The database of global best practices from other countries and involving experts from other countries in helping develop successful governance and business model is something that we should start straight away. Capacity building amongst IORA states is to be carried out with the involvement, as I mentioned earlier, government agencies, the private sector, civil society, etc., separately or in their different combinations. It is true that blue economy is unlikely to take off until all the capacity issues have been handled. The converse risk is that if it is not done straight away, the economically and politically weak countries will come under market pressure from the multilateral corporations. No less important is the strengthening of the capacity of IORA itself to be in the driving seat to push this process forward in a holistic manner. It is for consideration as to whether we can develop amongst the IORA countries a common or at least a majority position for shaping the legally binding treaty to protect marine life in areas beyond national jurisdiction, about which a certain thinking is already developing. So I look forward personally to this dialogue emerging into a robust discourse amongst IORA countries, with India playing a significant role in a larger national and regional interest for which the strategic historic opportunity exists, and also to internalize the imperative necessity of moving quickly on these for a change. I'm talking internalizing this particular imperative. For a change, perhaps the National Green Tribunal could be renamed as National Green and Blue Tribunal. Thank you.